America was founded on principles that no other country on this planet was ever founded with those same principles. And this is not only evident by the actual Constitution and Bill of Rights, but the statements, the quotes, the things that our forefathers who created this form of governing said themselves. And one of the most profound ones, I think, especially dealing with what we're dealing with today, and that's what I intend to go through in this video, is James Madison and his quote about a standing army. The means of defense against foreign danger have been always the instruments of tyranny at home. Among the Romans, it was a standing maxim to excite a war whenever a revolt was apprehended. Throughout all Europe, the armies kept up under the pretext of defending have enslaved the people. What's he saying? Well, he says it pretty point blank in the beginning, right? The means of defense against foreign danger. So the way you go about, or at least the way you say you're going to go about protecting the people against the boogeyman, have always been the instruments of tyranny at home, will always be the excuse used by those tyrants. They will always say it's for your own safety. Every time they take away rights, freedoms, things that they didn't grant these to you to be able to take them away, but they do. Their legislation is passed all the time limiting the amount of freedoms you have. Let's take the Second Amendment, which again, the Constitution itself, the Bill of Rights itself, they weren't there to grant you these freedoms. It was designed to enshrine the freedoms as human beings, as God created creatures already have. But we're seeing that increasingly chipped away. I want to take just a quick second to tell you this is not going to get any views unless you take a couple of seconds and share it somewhere. Unfortunately, we all know this to be true. The truth, the people that are standing up against this machine are being silenced and centered and shadow banned every single turn. And I mean, it's up to you, right? They want you to go out and vote and do all these. Sure, if you think that's going to change anything of their long pre-planned script. But you know what really does change things? You. Not some leader. That's what everybody wants, is somebody that's, if we just put our trust in this one person, things will be different. We've been doing that for a very long time, and look where it's got us. The answer is within you. We can change this. And that's the only way it will happen, if it happens at all. I want to show you what's going to be a likely scenario to play out during this selection process of 2024. But I want you to think about this quote from James Madison and the way that, not just, you could find endless quotes like this from the forefathers and the way they viewed, quote unquote, a standing army, which at the time, I mean, if you want to adjust it for the amount of years for societal changes, what it means today. It means that the government should not have the military deployed in any sense in the United States. There should be the military, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Space Force. The only goal, according to the very foundation of the governance system of this country, declares, leaves no room for doubt, in fact, what the intent was, that the military was only designed to prevent any type of foreign attacks. There were mechanisms in place to deal with those that, like from inside the own system. But the military, you don't need a military for that, right? Like, you spot those types of traitorous people, and there's law systems in place to deal with that. You're talking about foreign armies. That's the purpose. Now, once you use that same military or give them permission to use the force that they would use on an enemy, on the very own citizens of the nation that they are sworn to protect, if there's not a bigger red flag for tyranny approaching, I don't know what is. Let's go through a couple interesting things to largely go unnoticed among the masses as of late. The new Department of Defense rules allow use of lethal force by military on U.S. citizens, October 16th, 2024. I forget the exact, they'll probably mention it in here, but I encourage you to go read it. There's a lot of technical jargon in there, but you can get the gist. But I'm sure as we go through this, you'll also get a pretty good understanding of what's at stake here. Imagine waking up to discover that the United States military has quietly been granted the authority to assist in domestic law enforcement activities, which they had never been able to do before, including the use of lethal force against U.S. citizens in certain circumstances. What would those circumstances be? Yeah, just about anything, right? Like, think about this selection coming up. And how interesting timing for something like this to go into effect. We know their use of false flags and psychological operations and things. You could use your imagination to understand how this could get out of hand rather quickly. Now consider that this change was enacted just weeks before an election, already surrounded by concerns about unrest, civil liberties, and potential government overreach. This is the reality of the DoD Directive 5240.01, reissued on September 27th, 2024. Quick summary, the new provisions. The updated directive expands the circumstances under which the DoD can assist law enforcement. And if anybody's been paying any attention about law enforcement, they see that those police officers that once were have been replaced with a militarized, low IQ, power-hungry tyrant. And that's been done by design. That's not an accident. They all have "We the People" tattooed on their left arm, but they could not give a shit about the Constitution. Assassination explicitly forbidden. While assassination is banned, the new language allows for lethal actions under imminent threats. An imminent threat doesn't even have to be violence anymore. Now, for those, the very few that are probably watching this that have followed me for a long time. And the reason being is for what I'm about to say right now. I have gone through countless channels continually silenced, shut down. This last channel that I just had, the Son of Perdition channel, without even getting strikes, they removed my ability to produce content on that channel. They just took it away from me. I can prove that going forward. I will show you that. For anybody that thinks that they would never do that, they do. They go outside of what it is that their own user agreement allows and just shut you up. Sure, there may be legal consequences that could be pursued. Who's going to do it? I'm not. I don't got time to go get a lawyer for something that probably... They got law firms at their disposal. I'm going to get some local Joe Schmo taking up the case only to be bribed by people that have millions and millions of dollars to just say, hey, you're going to take the fall on this one. You're going to lose this case, just to let you know. That guy's going to... My $600 an hour on that attorney isn't going to do shit against the million he's going to walk away with from the other side. That's dirty politics. That's the way things work. Concerns about civil liberties. The expanded definition of national security threats is raising alarms, particularly given the Department of Homeland Security's broader definition of the domestic terror threat. That's what I was just about to talk about. Saving it for this, because if you've been following the DHS and their bulletins that have been putting out, and I have in countless channels and countless videos, only to have those channels completely annihilated, videos just gone, with no reason, with no strike, no nothing, just gone. Well, you shouldn't have been using YouTube. Yeah, I agree, except that's where the people are. If I'm on BitChute, I don't really got to worry about waking up people over on BitChute, because chances are there's probably an 85% chance that they already have a pretty good damn idea of what's going on anyway. I don't need an echo chamber. I need to get a message out. Let me jump over to this article. Now, I need to preface this with, I am not on the right. I am not on the left. I could not be further opposed to the whole notion of that. But Marjorie Taylor Greene had the balls to actually bring up something of serious consequence. And that is what I was just reading, that new directive given to the Department of Defense, enabling them to use lethal force on American citizens. Your tax dollars hard at work, paying to kill yourself. Potentially. I guess if you're on the wrong side, for sure, right? Whatever they deem that to be, whatever the government, and we see their track record. We know what it is that they're saying. Oh, don't say this, don't do. Like, look at COVID. COVID is a perfect example. You had the government. Now we know. Look at the jab and all of the casualties. Look at the harm it's caused. And the fact that neither Pfizer nor Moderna tested for the very thing. 50% of what makes a jab is the fact that it prevents transmission. Well, guess what? I'm sure you already know this, but none of these mRNA technologies were ever tested. It means they weren't trying to do it. That's not what it's designed for. Do you think if that was one of the intended goals, they would surely test to see if it was effective? If you knew that wasn't what you were setting out for, then no, you're not going to waste money testing something you know won't be there, and will provide a paper trail of information showing that it's not there, for people only to then come out later and say, well, you tested for it's 0% effective. You know it's 0% effective because you didn't design it for that. This is a perfect example. This is the very government, and they've lied. They gaslit us the entire time, telling us we need to. Biden shaking his fist. He's on his last straw. They were threatening. People lost everything because they refused. Thank God they did, but some, they gave in. Now we see 18-year-olds dropping dead on soccer fields and basketball courts because of heart attacks. In their prime, healthy as could be, dropping dead, blood clots the size of their legs. And those are the ones that are dictating what is of significant harm, what's violence, what's misinformation, what's whatever. The people that have lied to us over and over and over to simply strengthen their position of control. With the 2024 presidential election 1 week away and election anxiety through the roof, the Capitol Police performed a casualty evacuation exercise Monday evening that included 3 helicopters landing on the east front of the U.S. Capitol. Excuse me? How many people heard of that? How many people knew that the Capitol just held a massive exercise involving 3 helicopters? It's called a casualty evacuation exercise. There has been plenty of rhetoric on the left about Trump drumming up another incident by not accepting the outcome of the election should he lose. But given what we know happened after Trump won in 2016 and the less propensity to project, it's fair to expect post-election violence. And I agree. But I don't think it's for what they're going to, obviously, what they're going to tell us. What I think, this is why I think you should share this video and get it out there. We'll see if I'm wrong. We'll see if I'm right. Time will tell. And maybe if I'm right, or have been on so many things and lost so many channels because of it, maybe some way, somehow, it'll just break through. People will be like, whoa, damn, he kind of nailed that one. Maybe we should listen to what he's got to say on the next. What I think is going to happen is, and throughout this video, you'll see a lot of evidence for this, in a way, but you've already seen evidence for this. You've seen the buildup of a lot of the things that I'm going to say. They have 2 options. One of those options, one of the likely ones that I see, is foreign interference. Russia, China, Iran. There's been a lot of, I think, laying the groundwork for this within the last couple of weeks. The last couple of years, really, if we want. But especially the last couple of weeks. As we go through this video, you'll see more of what I'm talking about specifically, so I don't want to jump the gun here, but we've seen on numerous occasions the way that they tend to say, like the Department of Homeland Security's bulletin that I was talking about earlier, talking about without any of this ever happening, there was never a case, not anything that made mainstream media news or any kind of coverage or anything serious. There was never any reason for the Department of Homeland Security to put this bulletin out that was explicitly warning of the dangers of radicalized U.S. citizens becoming easy targets of foreign operations, such as like Russia paying one of these radicalized, like, oh, I hate the government, blah, blah, blah. Russia comes along, oh, you hate your government, do you? Well, we'll pay you this much to do this. Now this, maybe somewhere, that could be a possibility. But they've been treating it like this is something that is on the top of their watch list. Now, this has been going on, like I said, for literal years. That the bulletin I'm talking about, I think was, I don't know, somebody fact check me, but quite a while back. There's no real reason to make things up like that unless you're intending on that event eventually happening and then being like, oh, well, look, we were always on it. We were warning about this. Although the people the actual society has not seen them, history doesn't care. It'll be looked back like, the DHS was concerned with that. Oh, and then it happened. That's how it'll be portrayed in the media. They're going to be like, yes, well, yeah. You have to see these things happening before they happen. You have to recognize what is being laid, the groundwork that is being laid beforehand. Otherwise, what's the point? Everybody can report on what has happened. The point is to change what's going to happen, or at least be enough aware of what is happening to not make uneducated decisions, to not let fear responses guide your reactions to whatever is happening. Because we see where that got us in 9/11, right? We had the Patriot Act, the Freedom Act, the National Defense Authorization Act. A lot of freedoms, rights. You got the TSA. Things change. We all can agree to that. And that was fear-based response. People went right along with what the government was offering. They said, hey, we can solve this problem, but oh my goodness. Let's move on a little bit anyway. It's always good to pay attention to what the mainstream media is putting out. Not because they're telling the truth, not because you should listen to what it is that they have to say. They make good points and they're credible. Nothing of the sort, obviously. And none of them. I don't care who, you Fox or so. It doesn't matter which color flag you're flying. If you're getting your information from any one of these mainstream outlets, I don't care how alternative they seem. Even InfoWars is not alternative. It's very much mainstream. Now, that's not to say mainstream can't put out actual information. It's to say that their biases are going to be attached to it all over the place. And they can make something look like something it's not. And they all do it. They all do it. You need to just pay attention to the information. The very real scenario where Trump loses and takes power anyway. The very real scenario where Trump loses and takes power anyway. Why would they be? Is this just fear-mongering? Like, what is this? And we're going to see a little bit more of this type of thing in a few minutes here. And it's going to be even more interesting than this. 4 years ago, a sitting president, rejected by American voters, attempted to seize a second term anyway, plunging the nation into confusion, conflict, and, in its last gasp, violence. Now, they know there's a lot of people. This is the media at large. They know. We just heard Biden call half of the population garbage for supporting Trump. Now, you should be aware that all of these things, nothing in government happens by accident. Nothing in government happens by accident. I forget which president said that. Maybe it was Roosevelt. They know what they're doing. Like January 6th. That whole setup. I don't want to get too off the trail on this, but at the same time, I think it's important to realize that it doesn't matter if you are on the right or the left and you think like Do you understand what's going on? I want to assure you, you don't. Because this whole thing has been orchestrated from the very beginning. Like Biden dropping out of the race, Kamala coming in. That's been well planned. That wasn't some organic thing where people, they knew when they had the debate what the results of the debate were going to be. All of this is preordained. It's pre-planned. Problem, reaction, solution. And it works. It has worked for so long. Now Donald Trump's political comeback has revived a sense of dread among the officials and institutions who stood in his way last time. Could it happen again? It seems like they're laying the groundwork for it, like I keep saying. They're setting the stage for something. Could we get a glimpse into what that something might be? If we just pay attention and stop falling for the propaganda that lies within these articles, but taking them for something a little bit deeper and finding out what it is that they're really trying to tell us. Not tell us, but trick us into believing. Like, what's the goal? What are you really up to? What are you saying? Dozens of interviews with people deeply familiar or involved with the election process point to a clear consensus. Not only could Trump make a second attempt at overturning an election he loses. Now, I want to be fair. I'm not a Trump supporter. But Trump never tried to overturn the election. I mean, yeah, through legal processes, which everybody has done throughout time. You're entitled to do that through lawyers and everything. But this notion that he tried to fire up a crowd to then go in when he clearly said, like, there's actual evidence, even though Twitter tried to delete it during the time. And like I said, I'm not a Trump, but even that is by design. That's not an accident. Like, they knew, they were like, oh, we're going to make it look like this because this is going to garner a ton of support, right? Those freedom-loving patriots out there that see this guy being just torn down by the machine. Every chance they get, the mainstream media is attacking him. They're trying to assassinate him. What do you think that's going to do? They know. They absolutely know what that's going to do. That's going to get people like you, people like me, all the people that are freedom-loving Americans that want to preserve what this country was founded upon with its principles, with its freedom, its liberty. They know. And they're going to use that martyr that they've created through the use of demonizing him constantly, right? Having the sitting president of the United States call his followers garbage. You don't think that's incendiary? You don't think they know what it is that they're doing right before the election? And why? Why? Why would it they... I'll tell you why. Wise guy. I'll tell you, wise guy. I'll tell you guys why. It's an old joke. There's no better way to get away with some of your false flags and psychological operations that you already have sitting up your sleeve than having the entire public at large believing that Trump is, or they're trying to, right? They're trying to make this narrative where Trump is some type of like demigod, Hitler, and that a certain sect of his followers are these like hardcore extremist people. When in reality, like most of people that are Trump followers have good, like they're just good people. They just want to protect freedom. And then they've caused this divide and conquer. They've caused this massive divide through indoctrination and propaganda and, you know, taking hot button topics like abortion and splitting them right down the middle. Things that should never have been a bipartisan issue. Splitting them right down the middle, saying, well, now this is the left versus right. Freedom of speech. Every single person 10 years ago would say freedom of speech is absolutely a necessity, period. Regardless. It doesn't matter who your president is. It doesn't matter who you want to vote for. It doesn't. None. Freedom of speech is the bedrock of this country, of humanity. If you cannot say what is on your mind, you are not free at all whatsoever. That is the litmus test of what freedom is. Like, that is the absolute epitome. If you cannot say what is on your mind, if you're not allowed to speak because it's unpopular, it goes against the grain, the government, Big Brother, whoever doesn't want you to, and you'll be deplatformed, you'll be silenced, censored, you'll have channels removed, whatever. That's how you know. And whoever, history has always, always, always shown that the ones that are engaged in censoring you, in silencing you, are always the ones that are on the wrong side of history. So I want you to think, when they take things like speech, your ability to speak, and turn it into a left, like, that's insane to me that this has even happened, but it has. When they turn that into a left versus right issue, you instantly garner, unfortunately, because people are that indoctrinated, you instantly garner half the population support. Oh, well, certain things, you shouldn't be able to, hate speech is wrong. Misinformation is killing people. That's what they were doing during COVID, right? Only to find out later that those doctors that were spreading misinformation were 100% accurate. We're right. And the government shills, the ones on CNN and MSNBC and Fox News, were wrong. Not only could Trump make a second attempt at overturning an election he loses, he and his allies are already laying the groundwork. No, you guys are already laying the groundwork. And Trump's a part of it. I know a lot of people don't want to believe that. They want to think like he is going to be the one that's going to... He is a part of the plan. 2024 is not 2020. Trump's path to pulling it off this time is even narrower and more extreme. This is where it's going to start getting crazy, guys. Like I said, I'll lay it out once more. What I think is going to happen, which I didn't really kind of finish, what I think is going to happen is they're going to have this election. It's going to look like Trump won. But they're going to start this narrative about foreign interference, about Russia or Iran or China hacking in one way or the other and interfering with the election process. Now, this is going to cause a lot of upset. And in this meantime, while they're trying to figure out who the president is going to be, there needs to be some type of power. There needs to be some issuance of normalcy. There needs to be people in charge. And I find it awfully ironic that weeks before this election, they give the Department of Defense authority to fire on United States citizens. Now, you can imagine them setting up these false flags of disgruntled Trump. And when I say, like, this is why they demonize him. This is why they're using Trump. Because what he represents is America. Make America great again. It represents that philosophy of freedom, of liberty. But it's a trap, because as they take down him, they're going to use these psyops, psychological operations, and fake attacks I don't know what they'll do, but let's say, for instance, they decide to stage an event where some city hall explodes or something. They're going to say that this is the work of, hardened Trump supporters, extremists. And I think that's going to continue. And I think they're going to make the connection between a foreign nation paying for United States citizens to conduct kind of militaristic, revolutionary types of attacks. But I think it's all going to be orchestrated and designed. They need to take down America because we are the last remaining domino. If we go down, the entire system goes down. We, the United States, America, is in large part the United Nations and NATO and so many other things. A very powerful institution, but one of the problems as far as they see is the people. And a very powerful people, a people that believe in freedom. That's what the distinction is. Whether you're on the left, whether you're on the right, whether you hate Trump, whether you love Trump, none of it matters. Joe Biden, Trump, Kamala, they are all a part of the show. They're all designed to manipulate our emotions, to manipulate very strategic things to happen in ways in which they can continue out their agenda. I know that's a fucking tough pill to swallow. I know when you hear all the right things and you hope and believe that this person, well, why would they do this? Why would the media? Because they're that smart. The CIA was doing this admittedly during Operation Mockingbird decades ago. They know how powerful the media is, the influence is. And they found a guy, nobody knew Donald Trump. Not to say he came out, I mean, they knew him, but not like a politician. He's the "you're fired" guy. Another actor, we never choose these people. They're always chosen for us. Have you ever wondered why? That none of them are organic, and then you look at their histories. All of the presidents are related. What was she, like a fourth grader? Look this up if you don't believe me. Some like fourth grade girl found out that like all except one of the presidents of the United States have common ancestry. Of course they do. They've been polling. It doesn't matter the type of governing body they put over you. They are governing over you, and they are using everything that they can to manipulate you. And they're going to do it here, and it's going to be one of the worst things for our freedom that has ever happened. And people will be none the wiser because they have divided this country so deeply in a left versus right way that people cannot even see any common ground anymore. And we are headed full force into a concocted, orchestrated civil war at their behest. None of us will benefit anything from it. They certainly will. They always have. Through these wars, millions of people lose their lives, mothers losing their children. For what? Have any of the wars in the last 50 years? What have they? It's only been making governments and corporations richer. What has it done for you? We're being played at a massive scale. And I need you to get this out there and get people on the right page moving into this next chapter. Because like I've said, I've done this for a long time. I've been doing this 15 years. I've had numerous channels, some channels very successful early on before the censorship set in. I had not very successful, but to today's standards, pretty successful channels. But once I started really talking about things of significance, it was funny to see how quickly they clamped down. And they put up the Alex Jones and the Russell Brands and the, you name it. But if they're being promoted by that same system, you can bet that they're probably not who they claim to be. They're waiting on the tap. And what the tap is people that'll say they've been put in a position of, like Russell Brand, for instance. I'll just use him as an example. Say all the right things, kind of keep an open mind, at least have that persona where it's like, yeah, everything's good. We're just trying to get to the bottom of everything until his time, which may be 3 years from now during a very dark point in World War III. And they'll be like, now's the time, Russell. Now you've gained the trust of so many people for so long. Now we need you to start saying this. It's called the tap. It's just the way it works. I thought this was an interesting one. If Trump wins, a warning by Jeffrey Goldberg. America survived the first Trump term, though not without sustaining. And keep in mind that Israel just gave him $100 million, right? Talking about Goldberg. I know what that sounds like, but that's what they do. A second term, if there is one, will be much worse. If Donald Trump returns to the White House, he'd bring a better understanding of the system's vulnerabilities, more willing enablers, and a more focused agenda of retaliation against his adversaries. Trump will abandon NATO. If re-elected, he would end our commitment to the European alliance. I wish he would, but he won't. There's no way he would. Listen, we've seen what Trump did the first 4 years. And yeah, he didn't start any wars, but they, like I say, things are scripted. Wait till you see what's coming. If re-elected, he would end our commitment to the European alliance, reshaping the international order and hobbling American influence. Everything you need to know about martial law. What is martial law? While there is no universal definition, the term often refers to the use of the military for law enforcement. What was that bill? That bill that was just passed? Not bill, but a directive, basically an executive order that was just crammed down through giving the Department of Defense the ability to work with law enforcement. So what's martial law? The term often refers to the use of the military for law enforcement. Working with law enforcement, they just basically, they don't do this for no reason, is what I'm trying to say. Something is afoot. And I think I know what that something is. And I think we're all going to be duped by it. Unfortunately, not a lot of people are really, no fault of their own. It's easy to get passionate about these subjects, right? Like, I understand. And when you hear somebody like Trump saying a lot of the right things, having these massive rallies where, it's like, we're going to do, yeah, absolutely. But it's not real. I wish it was. It's not real. Unfortunately, it's just another trap that has been set by that same machine. A trap that is so deadly. Because as they take down Trump, they're not taking him down. He'll be fine. They're taking you as an American down. You as a freedom-loving patriot. You as somebody who has always understood the value of liberty and freedom and have a true appreciation. That's why this country is different. I believe personally that there was some type of divine intervention that on many levels during the creation of this country. There were evils at play, and there was also divine, or divinity, I should say, at play. I just wanted to quickly gloss over that one. I'm an election law expert. Here's what I fear most in 2024. What is it? Can the United States have a free and fair election this year? And if it does, will voters actually believe it was fair? No. Thanks in part to Donald Trump's continued outsized and polarizing role in American politics, we can take nothing for granted. But after 30 years of studying and working to strengthen the U.S. election laws, I am actually more optimistic than I was in 2020 about the prospects for a mostly fair vote count in November. And that's why we're going to see a little bit of foreign interference. You go ahead. Wait. Right? Get this video out there. That way the more people the better to say, "Oh, you were so wrong. Look how wrong you were." Get it out there. Share this video. I'm telling you what's going to happen. And I'm going to try to just brush through some of these things, but the Council of Foreign Relations themselves, the literal think tank of the New World Order, at least one of the major ones, has a pretty big stake in this, I guess you could say. And it's interesting to see what it is that they're choosing to focus on. Preventing U.S. election violence in 2024. Election violence, huh? Violence around U.S. elections in 2024 could not only destabilize American democracy, which is what the CFR and other global institutions need. I'll tell you why real quick. America is a sovereign country, and the people of America, Americans, are true believers of that sovereignty, of our right. A God-given right, not a government-granted privilege, but a God-given right to freedom. And no man at the stroke of a pen can eliminate those freedoms regardless. And in fact, a framework, a structure, a constitution, a Bill of Rights had been laid out in such a way that even the best attorneys and scholars of this day and age cannot find loopholes to take those rights from us. So, in order to do so, they have to stage some type of coup. Because, turns out, in order to have a one world order, a one world government, you cannot have a sovereign nation. They've already got all the other ones, Britain, France, Germany. They have all of them. They're all under the thumb of the central banking system, which is also here in the United States. The difference is the people, us, you. We are the difference. You are the difference. We truly, unless you're planning on wiping out all of us, or trying to make things like free speech a left versus right issue, which for some reason has worked on, lower levels. Unbelievable. It truly blew my mind when I seen that, because I thought we could all agree, all they got to say is like, oh, well, Trump believes free speech. Oh, Trump, oh my God, I hate free speech. But that's what they've done. This wasn't an accident. This isn't organic. This is the Council on Foreign Relations. I want to remind you, these guys are like on the upper echelon of the New World Order. They are one of the controlling bodies, right? You got Bilderberg, they meet every year. They like the CFR is always meeting. They're the glue. They're some of the glue. There's other ones as well that keep this whole thing in motion. And this is what they have to say. There is a serious risk of extremist violence around the 2024 U.S. presidential election. I wonder why they say that, huh? Many of the same sources of instability and grievances that precipitated the January 6, 2021 assault on the U.S. Capitol, along with other challenges to the outcome of the last election, remain present today. I've been saying this over and over, right? Now, January 6th was a psyop. As a matter of fact, the captain of the Psychological Operations Department in the Army or Air Force, fact check me, Emily Rainey, R-A-I-N-E-Y, Emily Rainey, the captain of the Psychological Operations, bust in 100 people from North Carolina, also pretty suspicious people, on a bus on taxpayers' dime. That's a government operation because it's on taxpayers' dime. Bust 100 people to the Capitol that day. We all hear about Jeffrey Epps. Nobody ever hears about Emily Rainey. And they laid this out. I said it then, a channel long gone, made numerous videos as to why they were doing this, and they were doing this because of this election. January 6th was nothing. They wanted to get that. That's why they kept pushing it so hard, trying to cram something down your throat. They wanted you in the recesses of your mind to know that this type of sentiment among the populace is not only exists, but will rise to the surface during a very important endeavor, during an election, for instance. They have a bunch of feds called the Patriot Movement or the Patriot Movement. I think it's something along those lines. But it's a bunch of masked men wearing khakis, combat boots, and aviators, looking like feds, getting police escorts from their U-Hauls or white vans to the protests. And in some cases, they've been handcuffed on lawns, all like sitting there on their knees. Like the police, they never ever once removed their masks. If that was a real operation, if they were really arresting those people, they would take their masks off. You don't arrest people, put them in cuffs, and lay them out on their knees without taking their masks off. You would expose them. If that's what your goal was, who are these people, right? The Patriot Front, that's what it is, not the movement, the Patriot Front. A bunch of feds, it's a psyop. And not only that, think about these attacks on the grid, these attacks on major transformer stations and things like that have been going on. Emily Rainey, that person that I just said, bust 100 people from North Carolina to the Capitol. The captain in the Army or Air Force, the captain of the Psychological Operations, bust in people on your dime. A government operation. A psyop. It's a psyop. That's why you haven't heard of it, because it's a psyop, but you can look it up. And not only that, but what else was Emily Rainey involved in? Well, why don't you look up attack on infrastructure, Emily Rainey. Let's see if they mention the fact that Emily Rainey is the captain of the psyops on the articles that you find. Look it up. Why are they doing that? Because they've been setting the stage for what is about to happen. They're setting the stage, giving a pretext to remove your sovereignty, to remove the freedom that you thought you had. And you do have. You don't have to relinquish that freedom because some politician says you have to, because they are a human being as well. They're sitting behind a desk with this illusion that they have more power than you, another human being, over what you can say, over what type of weapon you can have to protect yourself against tyrants like that. Of course they're going to limit it. If they're the tyrants, they don't want you to have guns at all. That's why we're seeing it in action. We are seeing what our founding fathers had warned us of. But the problem is so many people are putting their faith in. I'm often reminded of one of the greatest magic tricks I've ever seen in my life, right in front of my eyes. I don't know how old I was. I was probably 13, 14 years old. And I was talking to this, I didn't know he was a magician at the time. And I was talking with him. And, it was a good conversation. It was at a lake, and there were some park benches on it. And we were talking about, I was collecting rocks. I like, the lake, what you get these beautiful glossy rocks, certain ones, maybe you come across a diamond in the rough every once in a while, so to speak. But I had a couple of them in my hand, and I sat down, and I was kind of looking at them, sparked up a conversation, and he was like, "You mind if I see one?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, what's amazing about this one?" And it was like, it had this really kind of translucent emerald green color. It was a really pretty rock that he had chosen to hold. And he had said, "What's interesting about this rock is it has the ability to change everything you thought you knew about it. In fact, it becomes something completely unrecognizable than you thought you had, or you thought you had seen, or whatever." And I was like, what? It definitely piqued my curiosity. Like I said, I'd already been talking to him for a few minutes. Seemed like a reasonable person, pretty intelligent, fascinating conversation. But then he started going off in this direction, and I was like, what are you talking about? And he took it in his hand, right in front of my eyes. It wasn't even, no long sleeves. It was a warm day, short sleeves, nothing on it. And he took it, and he was like showed me it just to get, I was like, yeah. He's like, "No, look, take a good look at it. See those pretty greens and blah, 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 blah." I was like, yeah. He closed his hand right in front of me. And then all he did was wave his hand like this over it. Nothing, as far as I could have, there was nothing. He opened it back up, and it was just a dark, bland, basic rock that you pick up in a driveway, right? Like it was just nothing. Somehow right in front of my eyes, without doing anything. Like closed it, like that's what it was, and it was completely different. Now, do I think he's magic? No. I think it was so good and so believable that almost a lot of people, if they were sitting in the seat that I was sitting in, would probably believe that some real magic had just occurred, because there's no way. But people that understand how these things work, magicians, right, that are on the inside, that know the trick. How many of you have seen a magic trick and it's just blown your mind and you can't explain it? That person's not an actual magician. They can't manipulate physics. But they understand one concept, that they can trick you. They can get you to believe something. that may not be. Trump is that something that they're trying to get us all to think like this man. And believe me, I want it to be true, but I know I've done my homework. I've seen the things he said. I understand the alliances. I know his history. I've done my homework. You should too. And if you have, it doesn't matter what he says. It doesn't matter the way the media goes after him. It doesn't matter that they're always attacking him. You'll understand that that's always been a part of the trick. And unfortunately, not enough people will, and they'll be able to carry out whatever it is that they have. However this magic trick unfolds, it's going to unfold nonetheless. Because so many people are going to believe magic is real. Trump military could be used to preserve order on election day. And it will be, guys. They're not doing, not necessarily election day. Last election, it took like weeks before we found out what was really going on. And in this time frame, as we start learning about foreign influence, even though Trump is clearly ahead, and that's what you're going to see. Listen, like I said, share this around, get it out there. That way you all can laugh at me if I'm wrong. Or if it plays out exactly like I'm saying it will, maybe I'll gain your trust and we can actually exist without the censorship machine cracking down on everything, because we are more powerful than that. We can still watch and share, and it takes a little more effort, sure, but if you know you're getting some good information, well, it's worth it. I think, for me at least, it is. Former President Donald Trump said that if really necessary, the military should be called for some sick people, radical left lunatics. It's not what it'll be called for. I mean, not to say it won't be called, and not to say it'll be election day, but this is going to turn out quite the opposite of what that statement is. I think bigger problem is the people from within. We have some very bad people, some sick people, radical left lunatics, Trump said to Bartiromo on Fox News Sunday morning futures. It should be very easily handled by, if necessary, National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military. Why? The military can't, right? So even Trump is saying something that was never a possibility. The military is not allowed. Well, it wasn't until... When did Posse Comitatus get removed? When did it become okay for the military? Because Trump's saying, if so, if need be, even the military. No, that's not okay. That's not America. So it's funny that they're saying the same thing, the left and the right, but they're saying it in different ways. You got to read between the lines and absorb what is really being said. No, not from the side that votes for Trump. He also said, when it comes to trouble on election day, the problem is not even the people that have come in, even if they are the ones who otherwise are totally destroying our country. Instead, Trump said he saw the enemy as coming from within. The idea of deploying the military on election day would be an unprecedented intrusion on the voting process, not just the voting process, on your rights. You cannot have the military operating on U.S. soil. That is not what it was designed for. That is not. Countless. Let me go back to it. The means of defense against foreign danger have been always the instruments of tyranny at home. Let's do one better. Permanent military force of full-time soldiers that is maintained by a country even during peacetime. Our forefathers warned. Now, we always have a standing army. That's not anything new. But when that standing army starts operating on your own soil, like this new DOD, I want to remind you, like this new DOD, rules allow use of lethal force by military on U.S. citizens. That's not a joke. That's not for nothing. These are real issues, and the timing of these issues is awfully suspect, and the amount of coverage that they're getting is even more. Iranian hackers have probed U.S. election websites for vulnerabilities. Almost kind of like they're setting the stage for something. Online talk about civil war could inspire real world violence, the Department of Homeland Security warns cops. Those cops that we've just seen a bill that will allow them to work with the military to defend against those types of things. It goes full circle. I hope, I don't think I did a good enough job. I feel like there's more to be said. I could talk for hours and hours on this topic specifically. But I hope I at least conveyed what, and I'll even recap it. We've seen for a while, especially after Biden took office, the demonization, during Trump's, while he was the sitting president, of course. But that was only amped up after he wasn't in office. The entire 3.9 years, in the meantime, upcoming to this election, the rhetoric has only increased. They knew the entire time that this would be the outcome. People had called the fact that Biden was going to switch out for Kamala Harris towards the end. That I made that prediction as well. Many people did. We seen that in the cards, and it happened. It wasn't an accident. That wasn't organic. They knew what they were doing. They knew, because this is designed. And I know you don't want to believe, but both sides are all one side. And it's all to manipulate you. It's to show you a green, beautiful rock, only to show you that rock is complete bullshit. Or at least they want you to think that. It's a trick. You can't, they wouldn't be able to get away with it if they had a wild card. It's by design. You don't have to take my word for it. This is going to play out exactly like I said it's going to play out. So what's the point of telling you? Preparation, however you want. What are you going to do with the knowledge? It's going to get messy real soon. And it's going to continually go down. You're not going to like the next 5 years. Hopefully you can survive them. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is understanding. Knowledge is preparation. If you find a good source of it, hang on to it because it just might mean your survival. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, a great week. Hopefully the month is the best month you've ever had to lead into the best year, best decade, century, millennia of all time. Hopefully that's you. Just pay attention. God bless. Much love. Peace.